Professor Péter Hegyi, thank you so much for organizing the Nobel event at the National Academy of Science Education at the Center for Translation Medicine. It was inspiring to attend for all of us, including the secondary high school students and the university level students. I would start with an opening question. Nowadays, translational medicine is defined in too many different ways. What does translational medicine mean to you personally in your field?
So first of all, thank you very much for your positive remarks. I think in science, somehow we have to make differences between the different categories of scientific methodologies. And the reason is because nowadays, I think there is a little bit chaotic, also the grant application parts, also the publication parts, because in our opinion, we have at least three main categories in science. One of them, the discovery science, which is easily can mention that discover novel things, new things without knowing that where this discovery will be a benefit for the society. And one of the best example is the Hungarian Katalin Karikó, who received the Nobel Prize for discovering a nucleoside change in the cells which actually turn down the immunity against mRNA level. And at that time when this discovery were made, nobody knew when this new knowledge, new information will be a benefit for the society. After that, of course, this knowledge, somebody needs to discover it, to take it to the next step, which I would call translational research, in which we try to put it to a context of the human being, of context in prevention or treatment. And like I'm a gastroenterologist, and I cannot say a better example like Barry Marshall, who like did translational research and received the Nobel Prize for discovering Helicobacter pylori in ulcer disease. But he already put his question in context to a disease, and he wanted to find a new option for treatment. Nowadays, people don't remember the 80s when, ulcer disease were like today diabetes. Around 10% of the population had ulcer disease, and there were no drugs, and the only solution was the B-road resection by surgeons. So they cut out some of your stomach, some part of your stomach, because there were no treatment. So therefore, he asked a simple question: can we find new therapeutic approaches? So this is like a proof of concept. He put a hypothesis that bacteria are involved, and he proved the concept, generating new options for medicine. So translational research is also like discovery science is happening in the lab. You need sophisticated equipment, you need ideas. Usually this is done by basic scientists or those rare clinicians who also like being in the lab and also like asking basic questions. However, if something is just a proof of concept, it will be not a medicine for people. So you need the third part, when these discoveries, these new options generated by discovery scientists and translational researchers picked by healthcare professionals. So for us, translational medicine is a completely different entity like discovery science and translational research, because it's almost 99% done by a healthcare professional, either a medical doctor, a dietitian, a physiotherapist, a pharmacist. They ask very simple questions. And I'm a Semmelweis employee and leading the Center for Translational Medicine. I wish I discovered these new things, but not, because I think one of the best examples is Ignaz Semmelweis, who was a scientist, a physician scientist, but not in a lab. He asked a simple question next to the bedside: why the mothers after giving a birth die? and 10% of the women died in Vienna in 1865. And he said it's not normal because in the other hospital it's only like 1 or 2%. He had a hypothesis. He didn't discover new drugs. He didn't discover new targets. He just used the options which was available in Vienna. And one of them was as simple as washing hands in a chlorinated water. So translational medicine is not generating new options for medicine, but tell you which medicine in which circumstance is the best for the patients. So therefore, discovery science generates knowledge, translational research taking this knowledge for new options, and translational medicine tell you which options and in which circumstances are the best and generate a better healthcare. So either of the three parts are missing, there will be no benefit for the society.
Yeah. Well, that takes me to my next question. What is the biggest challenge, in your opinion, translating the scientific results into clinical practice?
Oh, this is a very good and challenging question. I would say the implementation, because people undervalue the importance of science at healthcare. Usually we are human beings. What you do, you think it's important. What you don't do, you underestimate it. Yes, it's easy, it's another things. Most of the healthcare professionals don't do science at all in their career. They maybe write a thesis because it's necessary, but most of them had no experience in science. So they underestimate it. They much more believe their eyes, their hands, what they see in a small population. So they don't understand that what is the power of science. I just tell you one example. I am pancreatologist and I see many patients. And for example, from 2013, this is well known that in mild biliary pancreatitis, after not to have a recidive attack, you need to do a cholecystectomy. And there were plenty of studies, randomized clinical studies, so high level of evidence showing if you take out the gallbladders at the end of pancreatitis, you can decrease the recidive attacks 5-fold, which is tremendously lot. And you can save lots of money as well. However, like surgeons, they see their patients that, okay, we can do it in an elective way, don't worry, because they see that the recidive attacks is under 10%. So for them, whether it's 9% or 2%, it doesn't matter. They say that 90% are well. So they believe their eyes that 9 patients from 10 patients are completely well, so they don't see the problems and don't understand the importance of it. So after 13 years after this knowledge, still, if you make like a survey, an international survey, you will see that 90% of the cases is still they are not doing. If you look at the Eurostat data, that under 75, 1.7 million people die in Europe and 1.2 million could have been avoided because we don't use the knowledge we have. So I think one of the biggest problem is not that we don't have enough discoveries, but we don't use them.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. So now moving to the Nobel event that we had in the last 2 days, you know, we went to Szeged where the international distinguished guests gave lectures to more than 4,500 school students. And how important do you think this program is to expose these young students to science in very early stages of their career?
I think it's extremely important. If I compare the last century with this century, when I was a kid, we didn't have too many things. We had no computers at home. So we could only go to play football in the ground. We could go to play, you know, board games with each other, so there were no distracting things. Nowadays, we are around noises, huge amount of electric noises. So somebody, a kid, received thousands of advertisements, thousands of electric noises during the day. And of course, she or he doesn't know, you know, which electric noises to pick up. Yeah. On the other hand, plenty of people offering different activities. So it means if you don't sensitize young people at an early age for science, they will not choose it. And when we looked at the statistical data, it was clearly suggested that secondary school students nowadays are not very much interested in science. And we asked the question why. Of course, in the school, if there is a break, they go down, they play with balls and so on, so they practice things. But how they can practice science if the universities are only in the big towns? In the secondary school, there are not many labs to go there to get practices. So we believed that the best way to understand whether students can interested in science, if we give them a small project to succeed, whether enjoying or not. It's the same in football. If you want to find out a kid likes football or not, the best way to give a ball, kick to the net, you enjoy it or not. Yeah. So therefore, we had a hypothesis that if we establish labs in secondary school levels, we teach the teachers how to perform these laboratory practices. So high school students can go to the lab less than 50 kilometers of their regions. Then they will go there, and we hypothesize that some of them will like it. Yeah. And it was so amazing to see for us that in an area which in worldwide there is a decreasing trend of interest for science, here we saw the opposite. A couple of years ago, there was only a couple of hundred students. In the Peak Arena in Szeged last year, at the same time, we had 1,700 students. In the autumn, we had almost 4,000. Now we had 4,600. And we just don't know where this number will stop. So the hypothesis was true, that the best way to advertise science, if you let the students do by their hands, yeah, and to make succeed with the project. So if they have a joy with it, they will join it.
Yeah, absolutely. We also the huge interest from the students attending these kind of events. So I would ask you, what was special about this year's Nobel event compared to the previous events?
I think several ways we always try to learn and try to improve. So what I enjoy in this journey, what we started in 2012, that when it was the 5th meeting, everybody said this was the best meeting so far. When we had the 10th meetings, it was the same. This year at the 26th meeting, everybody felt this was the best meeting. And the way is that we always try to improve. And I will be happy if after the 30th meeting, people will say this was the best. So now we try to have a faculty in a huge variety. So we had social scientists, we had discovery scientists, we have translational researchers, we have clinician scientists, we have even astronauts showing that if you apply science, you can go to the stars. So we try to put together the program to have a very wide interest for the students. The other special was the number of students, of course. We never ever organized a meeting with such students, and what we were very happy to see, that not only the students realized the importance, because also the government represented themselves in a very high level, in a minister, state secretary, deputy state secretary levels. The academy represented itself. Here we had the class chair of life sciences of Academy of Europe. When I looked around, there were at least 20, 30 members of the Hungarian Academy of Sciences. There were rectors of the universities, even from abroad. abroad during the meeting. So if I look at the stakeholders, we had mayors at the meeting. So if I look at the stakeholders, not only the students and the teachers, but even the policymakers found it highly important.
Yeah. So one final question. How would you describe this program in 3 words?
In 3 words, I would say future.
Mm-hmm.
I would say excellence. And I would say hard work.
Hard work. Professor Péter Hegyi, thank you so much for making this possible for all of us to be inspired by international distinguished colleagues and from you as well. So thank you so much for your time and dedication to this program establishing the National Academy of Scientists Education and the Center for Translational Medicine. And thank you for your willingness to inspire the future generation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.